What's up, guys? It's your girl Stacey Cake, your host for What's Hot, and today I'm here to review and give my rating for Scream 7. Now, I know it's been a lot of chatter about this movie, and not all of it has been so great, so I'm going to share my reasoning, kind of why I can see why people had that reaction and my thoughts about the film. If you like this type of content, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and comment, and let's get into it. So, Scream 7. Let's get into the ending. Let's explain this ending and just kind of the premise of what's going on here. So, as I mentioned in my previous video, this Scream 7 brings the horror of Woodsboro, California, that followed them to New York all the way to Pine Grove, Indiana, which is a fictional town. I actually got this wrong in my last video. Shout out to the person that corrected me under my shorts video. I said Pine Grove, Texas, I believe, but that was some like research, deep research I did that was just too much, and just forget about it. It's Pine Grove, Indiana, and it's a fictional town, and that's where Sydney Prescott, her daughter Tatum, and her husband now live, and she's an entrepreneur. She owns a little cafe called Little Latte. The Little Latte. We're taken to Pine Grove, Indiana. We see Sydney. She has a daughter who really wants to know more about her past, really interested in kind of following in her mother's footsteps, and really we find out kind of really admires her mom. So we get that, and then we see the new life that Sydney has built for herself, but it's not long before the past comes a knocking, or so we think. And that's going to bring me to like kind of explaining the ending and why I think some people found the ending of Scream 7 disappointing, or the reveal disappointing, or just the movie in general very disappointing. And to me, it wasn't a bad film. I will start by saying that I think it's a lot of harsh judgment saying it's a bad film. I think they tried too hard to throw us off and do something different, to the point that it just felt like it came out of left field a little bit, the reveal. They were trying so hard to make it different because it's the 7th one that it kind of just went left field, and you're like, huh? Them? Why? So we get to a point in the film where the two Ghostface, I think in this one it was actually 3 because one guy was killed. The two Ghostface tag team and kidnap Tatum, which is Sydney Prescott's daughter, who she named after her best friend who died in the first Scream. She is taken back to her house once she's taken from the Little Latte shop because she's been running all night. All of her friends, her boyfriend, everybody's dead, gone. Died brutally. So she's taken back to her house. They call her mom. The Ghostfaces call her mom. They're taunting Sydney. They're like, yeah, we're not gonna hurt her until you're here to watch. So then Sydney's dipping back to the house. She gets back to the house. They come out. No, she goes in. AI is being used to show like dead people from her past and kind of like taunt her. Like, they went kind of heavy. Like, I kind of think that part was a little phony, like them having time to do all that. Like, how did they know that that was going to work out perfectly like that? And then they wire her house like that. It was just a lot. But anyway, they did that, and that's kind of where our OG cast members get to come in, and we get to see their appearance in these films, like Dewey and stuff. And then obviously Gail is still in this film, and then like Billy Loomis and all of them get to reappear kind of on the screen, their mom, his mom, and all that jazz. So then they tell her, hey, we're taking it back to the beginning, and we basically have your daughter outside tied up in a chair. She goes outside. Sydney Prescott goes outside. She sees her daughter sitting in a chair, tied up, mouth gagged, and Ghostface standing behind her. One of the Ghostfaces Then they do the reveal of the first Ghostface, and it's the guy from the mental asylum, the psych ward, whatever. Full transparency, I fell asleep for like 10 minutes during this movie, and no shade to the movie. It wasn't because the movie was boring. I was just tired. I knew I should have drank the Celsius before I went in. I did not. I tried to stick it out. I ate some Chick-fil-A and I fell asleep. But it was a very brief period. I caught myself. I pried my eyes open and I said, let's get into this. I owe the people my attention, a good review. So guys, I promise I did not sleep through the whole movie, but I missed an important scene. I will say, I missed the scene where they showed the guy, one of the ghost faces, where he was in the mental side. I missed that. I did not see that part. I was like, when they did the reveal, I was like, who is this? Like, I had no idea who that was. Oh, I had to look it up. But I looked it up, and then no, what clicked for me, I didn't just look it up. Once he explained, obviously, and then what clicked for me is during the credits. I stayed to watch the credits to see if I could get a clue about something. So I stayed during the credits, and it kind of showed like a glimpse of the scene where which he was shown during. So that kind of connected the dots for me. But I apologize in advance for that. Don't take away my credibility card. I watched the movie. I watched the entire movie, I promise. It was just a little chunk. I dozed a little bit. And again, there's no shade to the film at all. I do not think it was boring at all. But your girl has been burning the candle on both ends. But anywho, I feel like him being the killer was underwhelming. They drag out Sidney Prescott's husband, the sheriff. He's like stretched out. Somehow he's still alive. Now I did think that was phony. Somehow he's stabbed, but he's still alive. And then the reveal is it's the neighbor Jessica that's the mastermind behind it all. And you're like, I can see it, but like, why? What's the motive here? Because I think we're used to, like, most of the screams, like the killers had like deep motives, or were like deeply connected or rooted to the main character in some way. And if you watch my Scream 7 Easter egg video, like, one of the things that I heavily felt from this trailer was that it was someone related to Sydney's past. And it turns out it was just someone who was obsessed with her past, which isn't really new, but I feel like they chose Jessica and this little strange man because they was trying to throw people off, because this is the 7th film, so they're trying to throw people off from who you would think. But to me, it just didn't make sense for Jessica to kind of go so hard. And that's something I saw someone say as well. They didn't reveal who the killer was, but they was like, oh, the killer kind of didn't make sense. And I can kind of agree with that sentiment. Like, it made sense. Like, okay, it was just like an obsessed fan who was angry that Sydney didn't continue to live her life in the limelight. She chose peace and privacy after being traumatized for most of her life. But, you know, she was upset about that, so she decided to take matters into her own hands. And when she saw Sydney, she became violently obsessed. She was previously a psych ward patient or something at a mental health facility, and she was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, okay? And she wanted to get revenge on Sydney because of whatever. She wanted to take matters in her own hands. She was in an abusive relationship. The lady just had a lot going on. And while I can appreciate that, I think the storyline would have been much stronger. One, if they didn't get rid of my girl Melissa Barrera, and then in turn Jenna Ortega leave. I was really upset about that because I think the movie would have hit so much harder with them. But that's neither here or there. I think it would have been a much stronger storyline if it was someone directly from Woodsboro, California, because that's another thing. Like, in the trailer, they show the call coming from Woodsboro, California. Some of the little details that were in the trailer, I feel like were missing from the film. Maybe I just kind of like overlooked them, but I didn't remember seeing that in the film. Let me know in the comments if you guys noticed that. But I think those details kind of were important for the movie. But I kind of also see with who they chose to make the killer, I see why they eliminated some of those details. They were used to throw you off in the trailer, but they weren't really in the movie from what I can remember. But I just, from what I got from the trailer, and then the opening kill scene being at the Airbnb where everything took place, that seemed like someone who had a vengeance for Sidney Prescott. And so I was right in that sense. But this lady's reasoning, it's like, who the hell are you? Like, that's what reaction I essentially had during this reveal. Like, who the hell are you? Like, that's literally what I was saying. And I knew who the neighbor was. I didn't know who the little weird guy was, but I knew who the neighbor was, okay? I knew who she was, and I'm just like, huh? Like, where did you come from? Like, I get they didn't want to make it too obvious by making her son the killer, but it was just like, I really thought it was going to be the siblings. I thought it was going to be them kind of like, hey, like, you took us through all this trauma by bringing your past into our lives. We're taking you out, Cindy. No, that's not what it was. Maybe that would have been too obvious too, but it was even at a certain point, I was like, oh, it's going to be Gail. Like, I even think that would have made a more sense of a storyline. She lost Dewey, so it was just like, you know, I think it's some other avenues they could have went that could have been just as shocking, just as good. Maybe you could have guessed it, but it wouldn't have been as off-putting and jarring as this reveal was, that kind of made people overlook the great qualities of this film. Because the kill scenes, it was definitely some kill scenes that had me like, ooh, damn. Like, I had those reactions only for it to work its way up to that reveal. It was just underwhelming. That was the word for, I won't even say the movie. It was just, the reveal was just underwhelming. It was like, who cares about them two? I think you have fans that are so invested in this franchise, have even reinvested in new characters. Okay, we get it. We lost some of those characters, the main characters we had grown to love. But then you bring the OGs back, and then it's something that doesn't even, someone we haven't even become attached to or invested in. It's these minor characters that we're just like, huh? Like, nobody really cared, and then I don't think it had the impact, the reaction, the impact, the shock that they were going for. I think the downfall here was that they were really trying to just throw us off. And yes, you threw us off, but it didn't land in the best way. That's my take on it. Again, I think it was great kill scenes. It's crazy that she killed her son like that though, and so brutally. Like, to kill you, like, she was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. You gonna kill your son like that? I don't know if it was the little loony man or her that killed her son, but to let him go out like that was insane. He had like one of the worst deaths, like horrible, and her friends died pretty horrible. Like, McKenna's character got gutted, hanging the ballerina. The puffball girl, she just got broken glass in her neck. It was just some weird stuff, but I do think they had some gruesome moments that I was just like, ooh, the wall scene was very suspenseful too, where they were stabbing through the walls. That was good. I thought Tatum was gonna get away when she was in the latte shop. So it had some really good and positive points. I don't want to take away from that at all. The opening kill scene was really good as well. I really enjoyed the play with the robot and Ghostface replacing the robot and taking that spot to then, you know, begin killing the couple. I thought that was great. The scene where she fell onto the knife, they showed that in the trailer. That was obviously a great scene, a great visual. And setting the house on fire, I feel like it should have been more about that. And that's kind of why I feel like that scene alone kind of made the killer reveal underwhelming, because that was so like pivotal. It seemed so personal. You would think it was someone who really knew Sydney. And yes, this lady knew Sydney, but like, I'm talking about like OG, knew Sydney, like the OG Sydney, not like this lady who she just met in Indiana, like what? But whatever. With all that being said, I hope you guys enjoy kind of this explanation, kind of my thoughts on why you know, this was like a little underwhelming, but great kill scenes again. I sound like Aretha Franklin, beautiful gowns. That's what I sound like, but I don't mean that in no shade at all. I just mean like, you know, it was a great build up just to be let down. But with that being said, I'm going to rate this film a 3 out of 5 flames. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you like this type of content, make sure you like, share, and subscribe and comment. And I'll see you guys next time.